I want you to lean in and listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you is not for the faint of heart. It's for the one who's been asking, why am I here? Why am I walking this path alone? See, there's a season for everything. And sometimes that season looks like solitude. But don't get it twisted. Being alone is not a punishment. No, it's a preparation. It's where God works on you, molds you, shapes you, and gets you ready for something greater. You see, in this life, we often think being with people, having company, means we're doing something right. But that's not always the case. Sometimes God needs to pull you away from the noise, from the distractions, from the wrong influences. You can't hear him with everybody around you talking. You can't focus on your calling with everyone else pulling you in 100 different directions. So if you're in a season of being alone, don't ask, why me? Ask, what do you need me to see, Lord? Maybe you've been relying on people to validate you, to lift you up, to tell you what you're worth. But let me tell you something, people can't give you what only God can. When you're alone, that's when you learn to depend on him and not the applause of others. That's when you learn your real value, not because someone said you're special, but because you know you're special. Solitude is preparation, not punishment. Many people find themselves in seasons of life where they are left wondering why they are alone. They question why relationships fall apart, why friendships fade, or why opportunities seem to be slipping through their fingers. It can feel as if the world has turned its back on them. In these moments, the natural tendency is to assume that this solitude is some kind of punishment or a sign that things have gone wrong. But what if it's not? What if being alone is not a consequence of failure, but a divine strategy for growth, reflection, and renewal? When you're left with yourself without the constant noise and distractions of others, you enter a space where deep work can be done. The truth is, there are things that can only be learned in silence, lessons that can only be absorbed in stillness. Solitude strips away all the superficial layers of life. It removes the external validations, the social expectations, and the pressures to conform. You are left face to face with yourself, and sometimes that's exactly where God wants you to be. It's in this space that true transformation can occur. Consider for a moment the greatest journeys in life, those of spiritual leaders, philosophers, artists, or even athletes. Often their most profound breakthroughs didn't happen in crowds or under the bright lights of public attention. They happened in quiet moments of introspection and isolation, where they could hear the still small voice inside them. There's a reason why so many biblical figures, for example, encountered God in the wilderness or in moments of solitude. Moses was alone on Mount Sinai when he received the 10 Commandments. Jesus went into the wilderness for 40 days before beginning his ministry. These moments of solitude weren't accidental, they were intentional, necessary for preparing them for what was ahead. In solitude, you're not being punished, you're being prepared. The process of preparation, though, is not always comfortable. It's easy to mistake discomfort for punishment because, as humans, we naturally resist the unfamiliar or the difficult. We equate being alone with being unwanted or unloved, but that's a narrative we've created, not one that is divinely ordained. When God leads you into a season of solitude, it's because he's preparing you for something greater than what you can currently see. Think about a seed planted in the ground. It's buried, surrounded by darkness, cut off from the light. To an outsider, it might seem like the seed has been abandoned, left to rot in the soil. But what's happening beneath the surface is essential. The seed is not being buried to die, it's being buried to grow. In that dark, quiet place, it's developing roots, it's gathering strength. And soon, when the time is right, it will break through the surface and reach toward the light, stronger and more resilient than before. That's what solitude does for you. It grounds you, it strengthens your roots, and it prepares you to grow in ways you never could if you were constantly surrounded by others. When you're alone, the distractions fall away and you are forced to confront the areas of your life that need attention. Maybe it's your faith, maybe it's your health, or maybe it's your relationships. In solitude, there's no escaping the truth of who you are and where you are. That's why solitude is such a powerful time of preparation. It brings you face to face with the things you need to work on. It forces you to examine your priorities, your values, and your goals. For many people, this is uncomfortable because being busy or being surrounded by people can sometimes be a way of avoiding deeper issues. But solitude doesn't allow for avoidance. It requires you to sit with yourself, to reflect, and to dig deep. This process may be difficult, but it's necessary. You can't grow if you're constantly distracted. You can't heal if you're always running from your pain. Solitude forces you to stop running and start healing. Another critical aspect of solitude as preparation is that it builds resilience. When you're alone, you learn to rely on yourself and, more importantly, on God. Without the crutch of constant companionship or external validation, you are left with the one true source of strength, your faith. It's in solitude that your relationship with God deepens, because in many ways, He is all you have to lean on. And when you learn to lean on God, to trust Him fully, you develop a strength that cannot be shaken by the ups and downs of life. This resilience is crucial for the journey ahead. When you come out of a season of solitude, you're not the same person you were when you entered it. You're stronger, wiser, more grounded. You've had the time and space to heal from past wounds, to reflect on your path, and to prepare for the future. This transformation doesn't happen in a crowd. It doesn't happen when you're constantly surrounded by people who may distract you from your purpose. It happens when you're alone in that quiet space where you can hear God speaking to your heart. Solitude also gives you clarity. When you're constantly surrounded by the opinions and voices of others, it's easy to lose sight of your own voice. It's easy to get caught up in what other people think you should do, who they think you should be, and how they think you should live your life. But in solitude, those voices fade away. You are left with your own thoughts, your own desires, and your own vision. This is where clarity comes. You start to see your life not through the lens of others, but through the lens of others. But through the lens of your purpose and calling. You start to understand what truly matters and what doesn't. This clarity is essential for the next phase of your journey. You can't move forward with purpose if you're still confused about where you're going or why you're going there. Solitude gives you the time to figure that out. It allows you to reconnect with your inner compass and align yourself with God's plan for your life. This kind of clarity doesn't come from external sources. It comes from within, and it requires time, reflection, and yes, solitude. People often mistake solitude for loneliness, but there's a significant difference between the two. Loneliness is a feeling of being disconnected from others, a sense of isolation and abandonment. Solitude, on the other hand, is a choice, a decision to step away from the noise and the distractions to focus on what truly matters. It's not about being disconnected, it's about being deeply connected to yourself and to God. So when you find yourself in a season of solitude, don't rush to fill the silence. Don't seek to escape it by surrounding yourself with people who may not be aligned with your purpose. Instead, embrace it. Understand that solitude is not a punishment, it's a gift. It's a time for you to grow, to heal, to gain clarity, and to strengthen your relationship with God. God removes distractions to help you focus on your purpose. Life is full of noise, constant, overwhelming, unrelenting noise. From the moment we wake up, we are bombarded with emails, text messages, social media updates, work demands, family responsibilities, and societal expectations. Everywhere you turn, there's something or someone vying for your attention. In a world so filled with distractions, it can be difficult to hear your own thoughts, let alone the voice of God. Distractions, while often subtle and even comforting, have a way of pulling you away from your true purpose. That's why sometimes God steps in and removes those distractions, not as an act of cruelty, but as a divine intervention to help you refocus on what truly matters. One of the biggest challenges in life is maintaining focus. It's easy to get caught up in the flow of everyday activities and lose sight of the bigger picture. We fill our days with to-do lists and endless tasks, convincing ourselves that if we stay busy, we're making progress. But busyness doesn't always equate to purpose. In fact, the more we clutter our lives with distractions, the harder it becomes to find clarity about our real purpose. That's why God, in His wisdom, often allows situations that strip away those distractions, forcing us to slow down and refocus. Many people view the removal of distractions as a loss. They feel frustrated when a relationship ends, when a job falls through, or when plans don't go the way they expected. They think something is wrong or that they are being punished. But what they don't realize is that sometimes those very things that seem like setbacks are actually divine setups. God sees what we cannot. He knows the things that are keeping us from our purpose, even if we are unaware of them ourselves. In his perfect timing, he allows those distractions to fall away so that we can redirect our energy and attention toward the path he has laid out for us. Distractions come in many forms, and not all of them are inherently bad. Sometimes the things that distract us are good things, even blessings. It could be a career that you love, a relationship that feels fulfilling, or a passion that excites you. But even good things can become distractions if they begin to take precedence over your purpose. When we start to prioritize our own desires and ambitions over what God has called us to do, we risk losing sight of the bigger picture. That's when God in his grace steps in to realign us with our true calling. Consider how many times you've been in a situation where something didn't work out the way you planned. Maybe you were passed over for a promotion, or a business venture didn't take off as you hoped. In the moment, it feels like a door slamming in your face. You wonder why God would allow such disappointment to happen. But what if that closed door was actually a form of protection? What if God removed that opportunity because it was distracting you from something far greater? Sometimes we become so fixated on what we want that we lose sight of what we need. And God, in his infinite wisdom, knows what we need far better than we do. When distractions are removed, we are often left with a sense of emptiness. This emptiness, however, is not something to fear. It's a space that God creates to allow you to hear him more clearly. When the noise of the world quiets down, when the demands on your time and energy lessen, you are given the gift of stillness. And in that stillness, you can finally hear the voice of God speaking to your heart. He whispers the things you've been too busy to notice, the things that align with your purpose, the things that will lead you toward your destiny. Distractions can also come in the form of people. There are individuals in our lives who knowingly or unknowingly pull us away from our purpose. It could be friends who don't support your goals, relationships that drain your energy, or even family members who place their expectations on you. While it's natural to want to please others and to maintain relationships, there comes a point where you have to ask yourself whether these connections are helping or hindering your pursuit of purpose. God knows this too. That's why sometimes he allows people to exit your life. It's not because he wants you to be lonely or isolated, but because he knows that certain individuals are distracting you from what he has called you to do. The process of removing distractions is rarely comfortable. As humans, we cling to the familiar, even when it no longer serves us. We hold on to relationships, jobs, and habits that provide us with a sense of security, even if they are pulling us away from our purpose. It's in these moments that God, in his love, gently or sometimes forcefully removes those distractions. And while it may hurt in the moment, it's important to remember that God never removes something without a reason. He knows what lies ahead, and he knows what needs to be cleared away so that you can fully step into your purpose. Think about the story of Joseph in the Bible. He had dreams of greatness, but before those dreams could be realized, he had to go through a period of immense trial and separation. He was sold into slavery by his brothers, falsely accused and thrown into prison. At every turn, it seemed like things were going wrong. But in reality, God was removing distractions and positioning Joseph exactly where he needed to be. Every setback was a setup for what God had in store for him. Had Joseph remained in his father's house, surrounded by his brothers, he would have never fulfilled the purpose God had for him. It was in the removal of those distractions that Joseph was able to step into his destiny and become a ruler in Egypt, saving countless lives during a time of famine. In your own life, it may feel like things are being stripped away. It may feel like God is taking people, opportunities, and comforts from you. But what if instead of asking why, you started asking what? What is God trying to show me? What is he preparing me for? When distractions are removed, you are given the opportunity to focus on the answers to these questions. You are given the chance to dig deep, to seek clarity, and to realign yourself with your true purpose. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that success means constantly moving forward, constantly adding more to your life, more relationships, more achievements, more recognition. But sometimes true success requires subtraction. Sometimes the greatest breakthroughs come not from adding to your life, but from removing the things that no longer serve your purpose. God sees the bigger picture. He knows what distractions need to be cleared away so that you can fully focus on what matters most. There's a reason why God often speaks to people in moments of solitude. When you look at the lives of the prophets, the leaders, the men and women who did great things for God, you will see that many of them went through periods of separation. They were led into the wilderness, into the mountains, into quiet places where the distractions of the world fell away. In those moments, they were able to hear God clearly. They were able to receive direction, wisdom, and strength for the journey ahead. God doesn't remove distractions to punish you. He removes them to help you focus on what truly matters. When distractions are removed, you are given the gift of clarity. Suddenly, the things that seemed important before start to lose their hold on you. You begin to see with fresh eyes what truly matters. You start to understand that many of the things you were chasing were not aligned with your purpose. This newfound clarity allows you to make better decisions, to prioritize what is truly important, and to move forward with intention. Without distractions clouding your vision, you are able to see the path ahead more clearly. Distractions can also come in the form of internal struggles, doubt, fear, anxiety, and insecurity. These distractions are often the hardest to overcome because they exist within us. But even in these moments, God is working to remove those distractions. He is working to silence the doubts and fears that keep you from stepping fully into your purpose. Through prayer, through reflection, and through His Word, God begins to strip away the internal distractions that hold you back. When you find yourself in a season where things are being removed from your life, it's easy to feel lost, confused, or even frustrated. But in these moments, it's important to remember that God is not taking things away from you out of spite. He is removing distractions so that you can focus on your purpose. He is clearing the path so that you can move forward with clarity and strength. In solitude, you discover your true worth. When you are constantly surrounded by people, by voices telling you who you are, what you should be, and how you should live your life, it becomes difficult to separate your true self from the perceptions of others. Often we don't even realize how much we depend on external validation to define our sense of worth. We look to others, family, friends, colleagues, or society at large to affirm us, to make us feel important, to tell us that we are enough. But the problem with relying on external validation is that it's fleeting and it's inconsistent. The same people who build you up one day might tear you down the next. And when that happens, where do you turn? How do you know who you really are when the opinions of others are constantly shifting? That's why solitude is so important. It's in solitude that you begin to peel away the layers of expectations, judgments, and projections that others have placed on you. When the voices of others fall away, you are left with yourself, and in that quiet space, you begin to uncover your true worth, not the worth that is determined by what you do, what you have, or what others think of you, but the worth that comes from within. The worth that is inherent because you are a creation of God. Many people fear being alone because for them, solitude feels like rejection. It feels like they are unloved or unwanted. But solitude is not rejection. Solitude is an opportunity. It is a chance to break free from the need for external validation and to discover the strength and value that lies within you. When you are alone, you are not being abandoned. You are being given a chance to reconnect with your true self, to remember that your worth is not determined by how many friends you have, how successful you are in your career, or how others perceive you. Your worth comes from a much deeper place, a place that cannot be touched by the opinions of others. In solitude, you learn to trust yourself. You begin to realize that you don't need constant affirmation from others to feel good about who you are. You don't need people to tell you that you're doing a good job or that you're valuable. You start to see that your worth is not something that can be given or taken away by anyone else. It is something that you carry with you at all times, something that is rooted in who you are as a person, as a soul, as a child of God. This discovery is incredibly liberating. When you no longer rely on others to tell you your worth, you become free to live authentically. You no longer feel the pressure to conform to what others expect of you. You don't have to mold yourself into someone you're not just to gain approval or acceptance. Instead, you can live in alignment with your true self, with your values, and with your purpose. You begin to see that the only approval you truly need is your own and that of God. Solitude also provides you with the space to heal. Many of us carry wounds from the past, wounds that are often kept hidden beneath the surface because we are too busy trying to keep up with the demands of life and the expectations of others. In solitude, these wounds often rise to the surface, not to torment us, but to give us the opportunity to address them, to heal from them, and to move forward. When you're constantly surrounded by people, it's easy to distract yourself from the pain. You can keep yourself busy, focus on other people's problems, or use the noise of life to drown out the inner turmoil. But in solitude, there is no distraction. You are forced to confront the things you've been running from, the insecurities, the fears, the doubts, the past traumas. And while this process can be uncomfortable, it is also incredibly necessary. In facing these wounds, you begin to understand that they do not define you. The pain you've experienced, the mistakes you've made, the challenges you face, none of these things diminish your worth. In fact, it is often through the process of healing that you discover just how strong and valuable you truly are. You begin to see that your worth is not diminished by the hardships you face. Rather, it is amplified by your ability to overcome them. Solitude gives you the time and space to reflect on your journey, to honor your resilience, and to reclaim your sense of worth. Another powerful aspect of solitude is that it allows you to tune in to the voice of God. When you're constantly surrounded by the noise of life, it can be difficult to hear that still small voice guiding you, reminding you of your purpose and affirming your worth. But in solitude, when the distractions fall away, you begin to hear that voice more clearly. You start to realize that your worth is not based on worldly standards. It's not based on how much money you make, how many achievements you rack up, or how many people praise you. Your worth comes from the fact that you are a child of God, created with purpose, intention, and love. God doesn't need you to prove your worth. He doesn't need you to perform or to achieve certain milestones to be worthy of his love. You are already enough just as you are. And sometimes it takes being alone to truly grasp that truth. When you are no longer seeking approval from others, you can fully embrace the fact that you are valuable simply because you exist, because you are uniquely and wonderfully made. Solitude also gives you the opportunity to explore your passions, your gifts, and your calling. When you're constantly surrounded by people, it's easy to lose sight of what makes you come alive. You may get caught up in the opinions and expectations of others, pursuing goals or dreams that don't align with your true self. But in solitude, you have the freedom to rediscover what truly matters to you. You can reconnect with your passions, explore your gifts, and begin to align your life with your true purpose. In this process, you begin to see that your worth is not tied to what you do or how much you achieve, but to how authentically you live out your purpose. This rediscovery of your passions and purpose also helps you to build confidence. When you know your worth, when you are no longer seeking validation from others, you can move through life with a sense of self-assurance that is unshakable. You don't need others to tell you that you're on the right path because you know in your heart that you are. You don't need people to affirm your choices because you have already affirmed them within yourself. This kind of confidence is powerful because it allows you to live boldly, to take risks, and to pursue your dreams without fear of judgment or failure. You know that your worth is not dependent on the outcome of your efforts, but on the fact that you are living in alignment with your true self. In solitude, you also learn the importance of self-love. When you're constantly looking to others for validation, it's easy to neglect your own needs, to put others' opinions and desires ahead of your own. But in solitude, you have the chance to prioritize yourself, to practice self-care, and to cultivate a deep sense of self-love. This self-love is not about being selfish or self-centered. It's about recognizing that you are worthy of love, care, and attention just as much as anyone else. When you love yourself, you begin to set healthy boundaries. You no longer allow others to define your worth or to take advantage of you. You start to surround yourself with people who uplift you, who support you, and who honor your true worth. Solitude is a gift, a time of reflection, healing, and self-discovery. It is in these quiet moments that you begin to see yourself more clearly, to understand your true value, and to embrace the fact that you are worthy not because of what you do, but because of who you are. When you strip away the need for external validation, you are left with the truth that your worth is inherent, unchanging, and deeply rooted in your identity as a child of God. In loneliness, God strengthens your faith. It's in those moments when you feel most alone, when the world around you seems quiet, distant, and perhaps even cold, that your faith is tested. The absence of companionship, the lack of external support, and the silence of solitude have a way of pushing you inward, forcing you to confront your beliefs, your fears, and your doubts. When there is no one else to lean on, you are left with nothing but your relationship with God. And it's in that place, in that seemingly empty space, where your faith begins to grow stronger, more resilient, and more grounded than ever before. Being alone is uncomfortable for many people. Human beings are, by nature, social creatures, and we seek out connections, relationships, and companionship. We find comfort in being surrounded by others and sharing our lives, our stories, our struggles, and our triumphs. But there comes a time when God allows you to experience loneliness, not to punish you or to make you suffer, but to draw you closer to Him. When you have no one else to rely on, no one else to talk to, and no one else to comfort you, you are forced to turn your attention toward God. It's in this turning, this act of seeking Him out, that your faith begins to deepen. In moments of loneliness, you are faced with a choice. You can either sink into despair, feeling as though you've been abandoned, or you can lean into your faith, trusting that God is with you, even in the silence. Loneliness has a way of stripping away the distractions, the noise, and the external influences that often cloud our spiritual journey. It's in the quiet of being alone that you can hear God's voice more clearly, that you can feel His presence more profoundly, and that you can come to understand that He has never left your side. Faith is not something that grows in the absence of trials. It's easy to have faith when everything in life is going well, when you're surrounded by friends and loved ones, when your career is flourishing, and when your path seems clear. But it's when life takes a turn, when things feel uncertain, and when you find yourself walking through a season of loneliness that your faith is truly put to the test. It's in these moments of uncertainty, of solitude, that you have to rely on your belief in things unseen. You have to trust that God is working, even when you can't see the evidence of it in your life. Loneliness challenges you to confront your dependence on external validation and approval. When you're constantly surrounded by others, it's easy to rely on their opinions, their support, and their encouragement to keep you going. But when those external sources of validation fall away, you are left with nothing but your faith to carry you through. This is where true spiritual growth happens. It's in these moments of isolation that you begin to realize that your faith must be built on something much deeper than the approval of others. It must be rooted in your relationship with God, in your trust in His plan for your life, and in your belief that He is guiding you even when the path is unclear. One of the most powerful aspects of loneliness is that it forces you to let go of the illusion of control. As human beings, we often cling to the idea that we are in control of our lives, that we can shape our future through our own efforts, and that we can rely on ourselves and others to get through difficult times. But loneliness strips that illusion away. When you are alone, you are faced with the reality that there are many things in life that are beyond your control. You can't control how others treat you. You can't control the circumstances you find yourself in, and you can't control the timing of certain events in your life. But what you can control is your response to these challenges. You can choose to rely on your faith, to trust in God's plan, and to believe that He is working all things together for your good, even when it doesn't feel that way. Loneliness also teaches you patience. In a world where we are constantly rushing, constantly seeking immediate results and instant gratification, loneliness forces you to slow down. It forces you to sit with your emotions, your thoughts, and your faith. It's in this waiting, in this season of solitude, that you learn the true meaning of patience. You learn that God's timing is not your timing, and that sometimes He allows you to walk through seasons of loneliness so that you can develop the endurance and perseverance you will need for the next chapter of your life. Faith is not just about believing in God's promises, it's also about trusting His timing, even when it doesn't align with your own. When you're alone, you are given the space to reflect on your relationship with God. Without the distractions of the world, without the noise of other people's opinions, you can begin to focus on your spiritual journey. You can take the time to pray, to meditate, to read scripture, and to truly seek God's presence in your life. It's in these moments of solitude that you begin to build a deeper, more intimate relationship with God. You begin to understand that faith is not just about going through the motions or following a set of rules. It's about cultivating a personal connection with the Creator, a connection that is built on trust, love, and surrender. Loneliness also gives you the opportunity to examine your priorities. When you're constantly surrounded by others, it's easy to get caught up in the busyness of life, to focus on things that may not truly matter in the grand scheme of things. But when you're alone, you have the chance to take a step back and assess what is truly important to you. You begin to realize that many of the things you once thought were essential status, recognition, material possessions are not nearly as important as your relationship with God and your spiritual well-being. This shift in perspective is a powerful part of strengthening your faith. It allows you to let go of the things that no longer serve you and to focus on what truly matters. Through loneliness, you also learn to trust in God's provision. When you feel alone, it's natural to question whether God is really there, whether He is really providing for your needs. But it's in these moments that you have to lean on your faith and trust that God is taking care of you, even when it's not immediately apparent. You learn to trust that He knows what you need better than you do, and that He will provide for you in ways that you may not expect. This trust in God's provision is a crucial aspect of faith. It teaches you to let go of your worries, to stop trying to control every aspect of your life, and to rest in the knowledge that God is in control. Loneliness can also be a time of transformation. When you are alone, when you are stripped of the external distractions and comforts that you once relied on, you are given the opportunity to grow and to change. It's in these moments of solitude that God often does His most transformative work in your life. He uses the quiet, the stillness to mold you, to shape you, and to prepare you for the next season of your life. This transformation is not always easy, and it often requires you to confront parts of yourself that you may have been avoiding. But it's through this process that your faith is strengthened, that you become more aligned with God's purpose for your life, and that you emerge from the season of loneliness with a deeper sense of who you are and who God has called you to be. In the end, loneliness is not something to be feared or avoided. It is a powerful tool that God uses to strengthen your faith, to draw you closer to Him, and to prepare you for the future. When you find yourself in a season of solitude, instead of focusing on the emptiness, focus on the opportunity that lies before you. This is a time for you to deepen your relationship with God, to trust in His plan, and to build a faith that is unshakable no matter what challenges come your way. Loneliness is not the absence of God's presence. It is often where you find His presence most profoundly. It's important to remember that the moments of solitude we face are not without purpose. They are not simply periods of waiting or times of emptiness. They are opportunities to grow, to strengthen, to become more than what we were before. To some, loneliness feels like a punishment, a weight that drags them down. But when we shift our perspective and understand that God has placed us in these moments for a reason, we can begin to see them as a gift. A gift that, though wrapped in silence, holds within it the potential for transformation. Think about it for a moment. The most profound changes in life often come through discomfort. Growth does not happen in comfort zones. Diamonds are not formed without pressure. The brightest stars emerge from the darkest skies. The same is true for us. It is through the pressure of loneliness, through the stillness of solitude, that God shapes us into the people we are meant to be. He refines our character, sharpens our vision, and strengthens our resolve. These moments of isolation are not meant to break us. They are designed to build us up, to fortify our spirits, and to prepare us for something greater. We must embrace this truth. God allows us to be alone at times, not because he has forgotten us, but because he is working on us. There are things that can only be learned in the quiet, lessons that can only be absorbed in the absence of distractions. When we are stripped of the noise, the opinions of others, and the constant hustle of everyday life, we are left with just ourselves and God. And it is in this space, this sacred, quiet space, that we can hear his voice more clearly. It's in the solitude that God speaks to us about our true purpose. Many of us spend our lives searching for meaning, for direction, but we often look for it in the wrong places. We look to other people, to our careers, to material things, hoping that they will fill the void or give us clarity. But the truth is, the clarity we seek doesn't come from external sources. It comes from within, from that connection with God that can only be strengthened in moments of solitude. When we are alone, when we quiet our minds and open our hearts, we give God the space to reveal his plan for our lives. Sometimes the loneliness we experience is a sign that we need to realign ourselves with our purpose. Maybe we've been distracted by the world, chasing after things that don't really matter. Maybe we've lost sight of who we are and what we're meant to do. God uses solitude to pull us back, to center us, and to remind us of the path we are supposed to be walking. It is a time of recalibration, a time to refocus our energy and attention on what truly matters. And let's not forget that God never wastes a moment of our lives. Every experience, every season, every moment of solitude has a purpose. There is no such thing as wasted time when it comes to God's plan. Even when it feels like nothing is happening, even when it feels like we're just waiting, God is at work. He is preparing us, laying the groundwork for the next chapter of our lives. But sometimes we're not ready to step into that next chapter just yet. Sometimes there are things within us that need to be addressed before we can move forward. And that's what solitude does. It gives us the time and space to work on ourselves, to grow, to heal, and to prepare for what's next. In those moments when you feel alone, it's easy to believe that you've been forgotten, that your prayers have gone unheard, or that you've been left behind. But nothing could be further from the truth. God has not forgotten you. He is not ignoring you. He is preparing you. He is shaping you, molding you, and equipping you for something greater. The season of solitude you're in right now is a crucial part of the process. It's not a detour, it's a necessary step on the path to your destiny. There's a reason why some of the most transformative moments in life happen in isolation. Moses has encountered God on Mount Sinai when he was alone. Elijah heard the whisper of God's voice not in the wind, the earthquake, or the fire, but in the silence. Jesus himself retreated to the wilderness to pray and prepare for his ministry. These moments of solitude were not wasted. They were moments of preparation, moments of divine encounter, moments that laid the foundation for what was to come. And the same is true for you. So if you find yourself in a season of loneliness, if you feel like you're walking through life alone, take heart. You are not alone. God is with you, even in the silence, even in the stillness. And he is preparing you for something greater. But in order to step into that next season, you must first embrace the solitude. You must allow yourself to be molded, to be shaped, and to be transformed. You must trust that God is working, even when you can't see it, even when you can't feel it. He is preparing you for something beyond your wildest dreams. There's a power in solitude that we often overlook. It's a power that comes from being still, from letting go of the need to control everything, and from trusting in God's plan. It's a power that comes from knowing that you are being prepared for something far greater than you can imagine. When you embrace solitude, you give God the space to do his work. You allow him to move in your life in ways that you may not fully understand right now, but that will make perfect sense in the future. Solitude is not a punishment, it's a preparation. It's a time to grow, to heal, and to prepare for what's next. It's a time to reconnect with yourself, to rediscover your purpose, and to realign your life with God's plan. And when you come out of this season of solitude, you will be stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the journey ahead. You will have a deeper sense of who you are and a clearer understanding of your purpose. You will be ready to step into the next chapter of your life with confidence and faith, knowing that God has prepared you for this moment. So don't fear the solitude. Don't resist it. Embrace it. Use this time to grow, to heal, and to prepare. Trust that God is at work, even in the silence. And when the time is right, you will step into something far greater than you ever imagined. You will see that the solitude was not a setback, it was a setup for the greatest chapter of your life yet to come. God is preparing you, molding you, and shaping you for something extraordinary. And when the time comes, you will be ready to walk into it with open arms and a heart full of faith, knowing that you are exactly where you